Venu is a celebrity in psychiatric medicine, and we have many common patients to share. And he knows few of our patients who has been on very strong antipsychotic, antidepressive drugs, and these patients have developed at a very early stage diabetes, hypertension, or complication. So he says, don't introduce me. He's a very lovable boy, a worthy child of a worthy father, right into the shoes, taking the psychiatry to the international level, and have innovated many things in this field. A good social worker. So this is what Venu is going to talk about.
My colleagues, seniors, ladies and gentlemen, it's indeed a great pleasure to be here. And my special thanks to my very dear friend Hemant and Monica for extending this invitation. And I qualify for metabolic syndrome because at least I have two. My BMI is 29.2 and I'm a hypertensive. So that is one of the reasons I was more interested. And now, we being psychiatrists, we are very closely working with metabolic syndrome because most of the drugs are causing it. The speed is slow. Can anybody help with this? No financial disclosures. There are a couple of occasions where I'll be discussing certain things which are practically observation or experience based. So there might not be evidence, but most of the slides are evidence based. The big question here is, why this topic here? Along with this profession, why do you need psychotropics to be discussed here? Is it important? Is it backed by significant scientific evidences? Is there anything new which can be offered? Or it's like many other things which is theoretical and ultimately lead to sort of a transient boredom? It's not that. Various names, Professor Tripathi has already sounded that. This is one of the books I would recommend by Nahid Ali, a very dear friend from Israel, and living with metabolic syndrome. This is basically for patients and their families. The word psychotropic, I know, I'm very sure all of us are clinicians here, they are very well aware what psychotropics mean, but interestingly, in nutshell, it means anything which alters your mood and behavior. That is what when we refer to psychotropic. And the origin of the word from a Greek word, which is basically tropos, which means turning the mind. So anything which can turn your mind or psyche is basically a psychotropic. And modern medicine clearly says it's about drug affecting or altering your perception. These are certain psychotropics: anxiolytic, antidepressants, antipsychotics, mood stabilizers, anti-dementia drugs, and few more. The concept of metabolic syndrome vis-a-vis psychotropics, we say it's new, but it's not new. Especially with a scholar like Barron, even with the onset of chlorpromazine in 1950s, 1954, he had the first case presentation of metabolic syndrome. That was obesity and increased blood pressure. In 1954 paper was there. But it got momentum only after introduction of second generation antipsychotics. For those who are non-psychiatric physicians and surgeons, I would just like to say, when we talk of antipsychotics and antidepressants, they will be qualified into two categories: old generation or first generation, and new generation or second generation. So SGA, whenever I say SGA, that will be second generation antipsychotics, which we are prescribing day in and day out. It adds to morbidity significantly. Along with the person's mental illness, it adds to morbidity. The best and the most interesting thing now is it adds to cognitive symptoms. It worsens cognition, and that is a greater area of focus and attention. It's time for a bit introspection. Do we think of metabolic syndrome before prescription? How do we select a psychotropic? Is there any person in this hall who has not prescribed a psychotropic? A physician who has never prescribed a psychotropic? None. So we all do that. We have some guidelines, not all, to select an antibiotic, to select an antihypertensive, but we don't have or we don't exercise the guidelines which tell us that which psychotropic to begin with. And when do we stop that psychotropic? I should not be taken wrong. With the permission of chair, I'm sharing a very interesting prescription about 8 days ago when I was preparing the slide. A patient was taking one antidepressant and one anxiolytic for 14 years. And since 14 years, he was getting the supply and he has met his consultant only once or twice in these 14 years. So that is the affair. So when do we stop? It's not consultant's fault in this case, it's basically pharmacist's fault because they have been supplying the prescription. Do guidelines guide us or it's something else? So this is a time for introspection. This is the Indian body composition. I think for me it's too late because I am fourth, I'm batting fourth from the top. So I think basics have been thoroughly discussed and I really loved all the presentations. But short height, low BMI, that all adds to, and this was the toddler which Monica was referring to. We have revised criteria. Again here we are looked down upon, which is very bad. They have reduced BMI for us, they have reduced body mass index for us, they have reduced waist circumference us, but we are also very adamant that we will increase our BMI, we will increase weight, we will increase our blood sugar. So we are very strong in the race, and day in and day out, we are working hard on that. Certain studies from India, interestingly they all are between 2003 to 2005. Dr. Mishra has done a lot amount of work. Dr. Ramchandran, we had some time to work together in one of the projects of hypertension and antipsychotics. On an average, metabolic syndrome, the prevalence is about 15 to 25% overall. This is what is met as basically visceral opacity and insulin resistance being at the center, and that leads to every other complication. Coming to core of my presentation, SMI stands for severe mental illness, and I will be restricting to only two classes of drug, antipsychotics and antidepressants, because these are the two drugs which are directly associated with onset or deterioration of the metabolic syndrome. People who have SMIs are schizophrenia, bipolar, obsession, generalized anxiety disorders. They already are at risk of metabolic syndrome. Even before the onset of drug, they are at high risk of metabolic syndrome, which is almost 3 times, which is not less. And this leads to 60% increased morbidity. And why this is important? Because in such patients, if you are using a drug which can cause a disturbance in metabolism or leading to metabolic syndrome, this is a double-edged sword. So it's very, very important for us to know which psychotropic we are using and when do we start and when do we stop. People with severe mental illnesses are prone for most of the medical illnesses much more, almost like 3 times as compared to normal population. Normal population is not suffering with severe mental illness, viral infections, schizophrenia already has a viral theory, cardiovascular complications, increased weight, smoking is a very big complication, tobacco. The metabolic syndrome which is pre-existing, that is something, so for rest of the population, one of my professors used to teach me, non-communication diseases, NCDs, are basically nothing more than invited illness. They are the illnesses which you invite. But with people with severe mental illness, this is not true. They are very unfortunate because of sheer illness. Already they are prone for these. And as you can see, the second bullet, schizophrenia and affective disorders have almost 2 times more chance of developing metabolic syndrome than general population. Even before treatment, the DHEART study, even before treatment, they have a disturbed metabolic profile. There is a significant disparity in spite of existing guidelines. Even I be very honest, I don't follow that. So we have very, very clear-cut guidelines that before starting an antipsychotic or an antidepressant like paroxetine, you need to have at least BMI, lipids, blood pressure, at least these 3 things done. But we don't. And for every 3 months you have to repeat them. In general, the cause of metabolic syndrome we divide them into two components, the biochemical disturbances and multiple organs and system. But the final and the most important site is vasculature. That is the place where there is an impact. Cardiovascular risk increases significantly among people with severe mental illness or people suffering with psychiatric disorders. What leads to weight gain? When you use psychotropic, what leads to weight gain? It is the histamine, which is the most important thing, particularly H1 receptor, because when you antagonize H1 receptor, it increases to weight gain via satiety center. You feel more hungry, you eat more, and you are already suffering with a major psychiatric illness, so that inhibition is a natural part of your daily profile. And when we come to serotonin 2A, 5-HT2A and 5-HT2C, the best example is clozapine. It's an antipsychotic which has less effect on D2, that is the traditional dopamine receptor which we discussed. It has more on D3 and D4, and if we talk of 5-HT2A, 2C. So people on clozapine are on the highest risk of developing metabolic syndrome. Even a small increase as compared to normal population, a person suffering with a psychiatric illness and on psychotropic, he will have a minimum gain of 5,000 kilocalories per day, which is too high. But he is not eating that much because he is already prone. And then there is a redundancy in pleiotropic activity. These are the metabolic syndrome which we get with antipsychotic drugs, which already has been discussed. If you see this part, is there a pointer here? No, sir, arrow is not working. That's okay. If you just see this, AMPK, AGK, and yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, leave it, that's not in that detail. I just wanted to say basically when we use a psychotropic, basically the satiety center is getting stimulated and then you tend to eat more and there is no control. And interestingly, one of the new studies, 2017 February, very interesting study, people suffering with psychosis spectrum, not confined to schizophrenia, schizoaffective, people suffering with psychosis spectrum, they have an increased tendency to eat food which is blended with oil and salt. That's something very interesting. So they have an increased vulnerability to eat food which is almost like junk food. Or one good example would be namkeen, which is a lot of oil and a lot of salt. So they have an increase. Like with tobacco, nicotine, tannin, they would eat at least 10 to 12 cups of tea just to reduce their hallucinations. So that is a problem. It's very simple. Antipsychotic drugs, when you take them, insulin sensitive peripheral organs, hypothalamic liver circuit, and then hypothalamic nuclei, they all increase to adiposity, which leads to metabolic syndromes. The highest is old generations. First is first generation, I don't use it now, but still in peripheries, a lot of people are using chlorpromazine. And clozapine and olanzapine we are using day in and day out. The lowest is second generation amisulpiride, aripiprazole. So most of the non-psychiatric physicians, if they are using antipsychotic, it will be either olanzapine. This is an observation and experience based which I see prescription. So I don't have any evidence for this to say that which literature and which month publication. But in general, the prescription scan which we do, non-psychiatric physicians and surgeons would use olanzapine, they would use quetiapine, they would use risperidone. There are three drugs, few of them certainly would use paliperidone. Lot of haloperidol. Trifluperazine has been missed out because of G4. And then certainly this is not used. So drugs which are more safer metabolically are not prescribed generally. That is the point and message which I wanted to give. This is worst to best. Clozapine is the worst and it is the best antipsychotic. It is the steroid in psychiatry. It is undoubtedly the most broad spectrum antipsychotic. If everything fails, clozapine. And it's a guideline. It's not that me and you are saying it. It's very simple guideline. And Molindon we don't get in India. So aripiprazole we do get it. So this being the worst and this is the best. If you see this slide, the formula is ZAR, Z-A-A-A and R. Ziprosidone has the lowest, then 3 A's, amisulpiride, aripiprazole and isnapine. They have the lowest metabolic impact. Simple, from the hypothalamus, the granule gets stimulated and then the dorsoventral circuitry from there, ventrolateral part of the medulla, and then the circuit is complete and the gut receptors are activated and then satiety is again re-stimulated. Antipsychotic typically would do sterol regulatory element binding protein, and that leads to adiposity. Antipsychotic and lipids. Highest risk is with olanzapine and clozapine. Quetiapine still is risky but little less. It is independent of weight gain per se, but high triglycerides level. Risperidone, aripiprazole is the lowest risk. There is nothing called low risk, let me be very clear. They all have their independent risk. No antipsychotic or antidepressant is devoid of metabolic syndrome. It may be just little less than the others or the drug which are used. Antipsychotics typically can cause diabetes mellitus. It's not that those who are vulnerable. By you starting olanzapine and using for 6 months, the veteran study, they say that 16% of the people they became diabetic. So the figures are not small, they are basically big numbers. This is what I wanted to say. Do antipsychotics have increased diabetes risk? Yes. These are the drug trials which has been done. First episode, patients, naive. The number is also large, so the data outcome is very authentic. As I think one of the teachers from BHU pointed out about this slide, Bangalore Heart Study about the risk, and our own KT trial, which now we all use it for all our references. Risk of SCD increases significantly when you are using psychotropics, but that doesn't stop us using psychotropics. Only thing is you need to be more careful. Though this slide is just to complement the presentation, just digress for a minute. See the number for suicide. And we talk of many other illnesses. This is another thing I think I wanted to share this. The suicide still is a very big risk. Baseline ECG is, I think, one very important thing. QT prolongation, quetiapine, which is very commonly used, and increase of 60 millisecond from the baseline or 500 if it is there. We need to be very careful about torsade 3.8. Orthostatic hypotension, one of the biggest cause of fall, and a very simple technique can help it. If you are treating an elderly who is agitated, disturbed, and he has many other medical complications, and you decide to use an antidepressant or an anxiolytic or a low-dose antipsychotic like quetiapine, which is a preferred drug for elderly, give them one dose in your clinic and ask them how do they feel after half an hour and after 1.5 hours. It's a very simple, very practical thing can be done. At least, and give them a training, ask them to put a bar in the toilet, especially when they get up. So the chances of falls are reduced significantly. Hyperprolactinemia is another very big risk, though it is not an integral part of metabolic syndrome, but psychotropic induced metabolic syndrome, hyperprolactinemia is now included in that. It is very simple because tubuloinfantile pathway and the T2 is getting blocked, and this leads to raised prolactin. If it is asymptomatic and prolactin is still 90, if it is asymptomatic, you don't need to do any intervention. But if it is above 90, either you start bromocriptine or you start low dose of aripiprazole. But interestingly, we only see and discuss hyperprolactinemia in women because they will miss their periods and they will have galactose. So that is something problem. But hyposexuality or hyposexual dysfunction in men on antipsychotic, that too which blocks D2 like risperidone, paliperidone, it is very, very important and it should not be missed. So men on antipsychotic drug complaining of any component of hyposexuality, reduced erection, reduced desire or delayed ejaculation, we must check hyperprolactinemia. And then certainly we need to check for osteoporosis and which are the drugs they are being put on. Anticholinergic drug purely for the muscarinic, and when we talk of the central nervous system, we need to look for cognition. And nobody will actually come to our clinic and talk of cognition. Do I have 5 more minutes? They will simply come and talk. आजकल मुझे जैसा याद पहले रहता था वैसा नहीं रहता. But let's be very honest, because this is a very close group. How many of us actually pay attention to these complaints? If a surgeon is treating somebody for a pathology in gallbladder, and patient says that these days I don't enjoy reading newspaper, how many of us actually will pay attention to this? Number one, we cannot, because our OPDs are huge, and number three, we actually don't know that what psychotropic he's on. But cognitive dysfunction is very, very important, independent, and those with metabolic syndrome. That is going to be my last slide, which I'll be focusing on. Coming to antidepressant drugs. All antidepressant drugs which you know have a direct correlation with metabolic syndrome. Some will cause weight gain, some will cause insulin resistance, some will cause hypertension. Especially the drugs which are traditionally used, amitriptyline, imipramine, desipramine, now it is not there, protiadine, dotipine, the common drug, they all lead to multiple complications. Paroxetine in particular causes maximum weight gain among all antidepressants. Sertraline, fluoxetine and fluoxamine, they have multiple problems, and one of the problems is hyponatremia. Most commonly missed, hyponatremia, use of antidepressant, and patient gets some slight, because it will be in the range of, unless and until it was taught to us that if it is not below 124, don't really bother. But we see symptom at 127, 128, and you just give oral salt capsules or salt, and it comes to 130, and patient feels better. So it is relevant. Because if patient tells me I'm better, that is more important to me than what anything else says. This is one of the very, very interesting study. I've just come to conclusions. In paroxetine group, there was significant increase in weight, significant increase in level of triglyceride for citalopram and escitalopram. And I want the group to pay attention here, because these are the drugs which are used by physicians and all of us day in and day out. Triglycerides for both citalopram and escitalopram. Escitalopram is the single largest prescribed psychotropic among the non-psychiatric physician group. Then sertraline group, total cholesterol increase, and fluoxetine group. Fluoxetine is relatively the safest. The oldest SSRI, or the mother of SSRI, is still the safest. Another study by Sereti from France. Most notorious, amitriptyline, mirtazapine and paroxetine. Mirtazapine, we have seen weight gain of from baseline till 24 kgs. From baseline till 24 kilograms. And I think Dr. Pandey's slide mentioned about bupropion and naltrexone combination. Bupropion is one good antidepressant, very potent, which may help in reducing weight. So there lies the selection criteria. If somebody is obese, can tolerate bupropion, you see no particularly seizure threshold issue, you can safely put on bupropion. And if a person smokes, like Dr. Pandey says that smoking is a big issue, then it's like a boon for him, because it's one of the good anti-smoking drugs. So that way. Blockade of H1 and 5-HT2C. 5-HT2C is basically the feeding receptor for both satiety and for completion. Again, Paroxetine, mirtazapine and amitriptyline, they all have histamine receptor and anticholinergic. So a lot of memory problem, you eat more, you are dizzy, your mouth is dry. Now coming to last part of the presentation, what do you do with metabolic syndrome? There are multiple things. If you go on the net, jamun, kaini, karela, then some kind of berries, whole lot of advertisement. But it's the healthy lifestyle which is the real solution to metabolic syndrome. Because you can't change your genotype, so you have no right to comment on phenotype. It just comes and you have to take it with a pinch of salt. And you have to do proper routine, proper structuring. But with people with mental illnesses, especially severe, we need to be very, very sympathetic. Because it's none of their fault. They need to be on psychotropic. They have to have olanzapine or clozapine. They will increase 20 kilograms from the baseline. So they will have diabetes, they will have more complications, they will live less, 16 years less than average lifespan. Even they don't consume alcohol or they don't indulge into other bad habits. But it is. We have various drugs, but not going in those details. Ideally, only two are available for us as the real armamentarium is metformin and topiramate. Topiramate is a little lousy drug because it deteriorates your cognition further and has many side effects like paresthesia and all those stuff. Metformin, yes, one of the good drug if you can clearly say that it falls into metabolic syndrome 2 out of 5 or 3 out of 5 category. This is metabolic cognitive syndrome. That is something which is very important now. Because if you see somebody, and that is the reason, tau protein, apoptosis and NTP indapendent, that is the reason people have disturbed cognition. So people who are metabolically healthy are cognitively healthy. That is one of the important message which I wanted to give. And thank you so much for your patience listening. Just few notes as conclusion. Metabolic syndromes are common with use of psychotropics. These symptoms can be life-threatening. Select MET-friendly psychotropic. Do regular assessments for all the MET tests. Thank you very much.